Well, hello everybody, and welcome to chilly Florida. It's the weekend. That means we're going to do a video. And get ready. Everybody, well, lately I've been going over some old videos that I've done, and because Mike's right, it never hurts repeating something, and I was kind of looking at some of the older videos, and one of them struck me because it seems to be a somewhat popular topic with some folks lately, and it's about believing in God. And so I'd like to talk about that. Um, I have observed a lot about people who don't believe in God, and I've come to see a difference between some of them. Um, I have a lot of people in my life who are very, very close to me. Actually, the closest people in my life don't believe in God, and I'm totally fine with that. Not a problem. But let me tell you about the first people I ever met who are near and dear to me now, and a group of people basically who don't believe in God. These folks are live in Germany, or not anymore. A lot of them do, a lot of them don't. But they're German. They're from northern Germany, from the city of Hamburg, where I found most people there just don't believe in God. Most people there are not religious. It's common through a lot of Europe, actually. So it startled me at first because when I went there, I was a Christian and I'd never met people who didn't believe in God, and I thought that was scary. But it turned out the family I was living with didn't believe in God, and my friends didn't believe in God. The ones I made in school, none of them believed in God. And uh, I came to a lot of terms with myself and my own beliefs and everything in in that process. But anyway, um, we spoke openly about believing in God, and basically, none of them called themselves atheists. I just asked them, "Do you believe in God?" And they said no. Yeah, and I would ask them, "Well, do you think there could be a God?" And they say, "Well, sure, but if there's a God, he could only be a loving God. I mean, if there's a God, he loves us all." But I really find no need to believe in God. They certainly find no need to call themselves atheists. Didn't grow up religious. They didn't find the need to have to take a side on anything. That's just where they're at. That leads me to other people in my life who do call themselves atheists, and they are. And what I've noticed about most of them, not all of them, because I have a dear friend who calls himself an atheist. He says his conclusion is agnostic, but uh, his choice is atheist. And the reason he says that is because his conclusion is agnostic means that's his opinion, and opinions are always subject to change. That's a pretty open-minded person. I like that. And I don't care if his opinion ever changes, really. But most of the atheists that I know, or even people who've recently decided uh, to call themselves atheist, most of them come from a religious background. And in the United States, most of them are Christian. Um, some of them I know are Jewish, and some I know come from a Muslim background. Um, so, uh, and most of them, the reason they have chosen their position and to call themselves atheists is because they they've concluded in their thinking that uh, if there was a God, there would be no evil in the world. God would intervene, and there wouldn't be any suffering. If somebody got sick, he would heal them immediately. There wouldn't be any wars. There wouldn't be any strife. There wouldn't be uh, murders and rapes and theft and the like. All of what they consider to be evil. There wouldn't be all this evil in the world that they perceive. Um, and that for me is somewhere I just could not go. I've lived as if there is no God, and I didn't need that uh, to cause me to take on any perspective about God or not. Um, Quite the contrary, as a matter of fact. And even for my friends in Germany who don't believe in God, they could believe in God regardless of all the perceived evil in the world. First of all, they don't think in terms like that, and this is what I'm leading up to now. The ones who who left believing in God and chose not to anymore and became atheists, and it's for the reason because they don't believe there would be any evil in the world, is because they believe God would never let any of this stuff happen. Now, to me, this just goes to the programming. The religious programming is still there. See, religious programming is based on a knowledge of good and evil, which I've talked about many, many times. When you view the world based on a knowledge of good and evil, partaking of the fruit of that tree is death every time. I think it's a beautiful symbol out of the Old Testament. I believe it's a symbol. I don't, I don't, and I think it's a perfect example. I think there's knowledge in that and understanding in that. And because if your worldview is based on a knowledge of good and evil, then you start coming up with um, uh, basically shoulds and do's and don'ts, which ends up becoming rules of do's and don'ts. And then because you have the rules of do's and don'ts, then this should happen and this should not happen. And then the next thing you know, God should be this way and not that way. God should do this, and if there is a God, God would never do that. And that's all just um, a religiously influenced mind that's been taught to view the world based on a knowledge of good and evil. And um, the gospel, the wonderful thing about the gospel is that, sure, sin has been taken away. So murder, though it is an atrocity, is not sin. Um, and God never intended for us to view the world from the knowledge of good and evil. Um, he warned against that. So what I'm trying to say is the gospel, because rules were taken away, um, do's and don'ts, shoulds and should nots, and expectations on based on rules and based on should and should not. That was all taken away in the law at the cross. And with that comes this huge paradigm shift. That old system of do's and don'ts, that built a paradigm, a way of thinking about things in your mind. Um, And I find that a lot of people are like happy to hear the good news of the gospel, that the law is abolished and the world is redeemed, and they don't. And but the old structure of thinking, the old view of the world that was built for them from the religious background, is still trying to see things now based on the gospel and come to conclusions. And I've found that you can't observe things objectively when you're trying to look at things based on a black and white, good and evil perspective. Anyway, that's my idea, and I guess that's the world according to Jeff today. But the gospel is truly revolutionary in the fact that you don't need to look at life and the world from a religious perspective, but a free perspective. Um, See, those who think God should intervene in everybody's lives and stop bad things from happening and make good things happening, that would be a nanny God. And oh my God, when you grow up, the last thing you want is a father who's meddling in your life. And I'm sure if you're a loving parent, you don't want to meddle in your adult children's lives. Um, that's not the God that I see. That's not the God that I perceive. And um, if anybody's expecting God to be that way, I think they're going to be severely disappointed. And I know that's revolutionary, but welcome to the gospel. Have a revolutionary week.